Hey guys, so a lot of you wanted to see more in depth of how I do my foundation and the products I use. So I'm just going to kind of show you like my everyday foundation. So first I'm going to start out with the Nars Pore and Shine. I'm not really crazy picky about primers. I try a bunch of different ones. Nothing ever stands out to me so much that I just keep rebuying it. I just am always switching things up. But as long as it has pretty much like blurring, anything to do with pores, like I'll buy it. This one does really good with mattifying, and I would say I have pretty normal skin. I do get pretty oily in the T-zone after a while, but I mean, otherwise that I'm never oily anywhere else or overly dry. So then we're going to move on to foundation. This is my all-time ride or die. I've been using this for years. I've repurchased too many bottles to count. It is the Estee Lauder Double Wear. It doesn't normally come with the pump. You can just buy this from MAC and it fits perfectly on it. I don't like trying to pour out foundations from a big, spout. It just gets everywhere and you waste a lot of product that way. So I normally have 2 or 3 shades on hand of this. I can be, tan or white, just depending. Still have a little bit of a tan, but I'm mostly white. So we'll probably just add a little bit of the dark shade in there. So I just kind of mix these two. I have my Real Techniques sponge. It's damp and this is brand new, so it's perfect and clean. It's not dirty. Normally mine are really dirty. This is always what I use to do my foundation. Sometimes, very, very rarely, I'll use a brush, but it's not my favorite tool. So I'm just going to squirt like a little, like half a pump of each just directly onto here. Sometimes people like to mix it and then dip their sponge in, but I just kind of go right in. So this foundation will dry down, I wouldn't say very quickly, but it definitely does dry. So you definitely want to work and blend it pretty quickly. So then I'm just going to go on with some more. My main thing is just blend, blend, blend. Like, you cannot blend too much, in my opinion. So I also go over my eyelids with foundation. Some people don't like to, some people do. I just like to have like everything to be even, the same color. I have pretty veiny eyelids, so I like to cover that up. Even though normally I do put concealer over my eyelids, it's just something I still do. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit more. I like to go over my cheeks where my rosacea is. I mean, you really can't tell that much, but I'm crazy and I don't want to see any of my red cheeks. I want my skin to look flawless. So I just add a little bit more to just make that extra full coverage. So I've blended everything out. I'm still going to go over one more time since I use this side for the foundation. Just to make sure everything is seamless and not caked up, I'll just switch the side of the sponge just so there's absolutely no product on it. And just kind of go over my whole face one more time. And then I also blend it down my neck just a little bit. Normally if I have self-tan or even if I go tanning in a bed, my face is always white. I always cover my face. I don't want wrinkles. And I don't normally put self-tanner on my face just because it gets in my pores and it, wears off in a day anyway. I'm still a little bit tan, so I didn't do the full dark foundation, but I just want to make sure that everything is blended seamlessly down my neck. So I'm going to move on to brows. I'm always changing up my brow routine. I'm always changing the products I use. Something kind of quick and easy that I like to do for like an everyday is I do pencil. So I have the NYX brow pencil in, what shade is this? Espresso. So depending if my hair is all over dark or if I have a lot of blonde or if I have grow out like I do now, the colors will change a tiny bit. Nothing too crazy. I just like a lighter brow when I have all over like lighter hair. But if I'm doing like full glam, lashes, eyeshadow, eyeliner, sometimes I'll do a little bit of a darker brow. Just kind of depends on the type of makeup I'm doing, but this is like my everyday go-to. So for the front hairs right here, I like to do strokes upwards just because that's how the hair grows. So kind of a reference is whatever way your hair is growing, you kind of want to do strokes that way. Since from here back it's growing this way, I'll do strokes that way. So recently I've been doing the tail of my brow pretty slim. It just depends. I go through phases of thick brows, thin brows, but right now this is kind of just what I like. I like to do my brows in an up close mirror, and I like to have a mirror to look farther away in just to see the overall look. It just kind of helps me gauge if there's any sparseness, things like that. And then you can just use a spoolie to blend everything together. Sometimes if I do like too harsh of a line, I can kind of just go in real quick and I'll just kind of blend it out. So depending on my day, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm just going to like work or running errands, I won't conceal my brows. If I'm doing full glam or I just have extra time, I will. So for today, we'll just do it just so I can show you guys how I do it. But it's definitely not like super necessary, but it will help clean things up if you like kind of messed up a little bit. So I'm going to use the Morphe M441 brush. It's very dirty, but it's just a little flat brush. It's pretty much the main thing I use it for is concealer. So I'll just go underneath my brow, and then normally I just do like the arch and the tail on top. Since this concealer is a lot lighter than my foundation, I don't want to go overboard because then it'll just look like white blocks around my brow, and that's not cute. So now I'm just kind of blending it out. If you do want to do this and not really wear any eyeshadow, definitely like blend it out as much as you can. Normally the eyeshadow will just cover up the concealer so you can't really tell. Sometimes I'll kind of just go over it with my finger, just kind of tap it out. Nothing too crazy, just to kind of blend it, but it does highlight the brow and it will sharpen out the tail. So, and then with concealing, you can kind of just cover up any mistakes that you made. If it got a little sloppy or if your tail is a little too thick, you can definitely thin it out there. So now I am going to do concealer. So this is the same concealer I used for my brows. It's the Tarte Shape Tape. I mean, this concealer is good and bad, I feel like, depending on the type of, skin you have and how, aged your under eyes are. It's very full coverage. It dries very quickly, so you have to work quickly. It will settle in your lines if you don't set it properly and you don't blend it out quick enough. So just keep that in mind. This is in the shade Fair, which is too light for me right now, but, I just gotta make it work. So I like to just go right up in the inner corner because that's where a lot of my darkness is. It goes dark all the way down through here. So I just like to stay on that little edge. You see a lot of people bringing a bunch of concealer all the way up to the lash line, and in my opinion, that's just too much. Like, you don't need to do that, especially if your under eyes are, already creasing. You don't need that much product. You can work your way up. So I'm just going to use the pointed side and blend that out. So you definitely want to make sure this is fully blended. If a line is too harsh, like you put too much concealer on and it's just not blending out, I always go back to the side where I used my foundation and just kind of blend through that line. You can definitely tell where I have concealer versus my foundation, but it just brightens up your under eyes, and the finished look, looks really good after everything else is put on. So don't worry too much. So normally I do everything at once, but I'm talking and I don't want it to dry and get all cakey, so just kind of doing one at a time. Also, if I was doing full glam, I would do my forehead, my chin, but every day I don't go through all that. That's just a lot of concealer for no reason. So I also really make sure to go around my nose because that's where things tend to get very cakey if you don't blend out well. Product will just build up there and it just will look terrible and it'll start breaking up throughout the day, and you don't want that. So now I'm just going to set it with my Too Faced Born This Way powder. It's just a translucent powder. I also use the Laura Mercier one. I just ran out and haven't gotten more. But I mean, they work the same. A lot of people like to bake under their eyes, and I get too creasy and cakey and I don't care for it, so I don't do that. So I just pour a little powder in the little cap and just get it on my beauty sponge. And then just like with the concealer, I start right here and then I move my way up. So I'll just get a little more to put on my lid so nothing's creasing. And I'll just do the same for the other side. So this is also when I go over my nose, my entire nose with powder, and right around my mouth and chin. Product normally starts creasing in my smile lines, and it can get pretty oily on my nose, so I just like to keep that as matte as I can. And then I'll just do a tiny bit on my forehead. My forehead doesn't really get too oily, but got some little wrinkles going on, so sometimes it'll settle in there. So I go through phases of setting my entire face with powder and not. So after I did all the powder and everything, I'm just going to set my brows with, there's no more writing on it, but it's just the Anastasia Clear Brow Gel. I'm going to set my brows I normally don't like to do it before I do powder just because I don't want the powder to stick to the gel. And that will definitely keep your brows cemented in place all day. So then I like to move on to bronzer. Probably one of my favorite things. I always want to look tan, I always want to look bronzy. So this is the bronzer I always use. I'll try different ones and I always am going back to this one. Even if I'm a little bit more fair than this or decently tanned, I will use this shade. It's the Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzer. It's the medium deep one. It's a great shade. As you can see, I've hit pan, and then my mirror is cracked thanks to my lovely husband for dropping it on the floor. So for bronzer, I'm going to use the Morphe M406. It's just like a stippling brush. This is my favorite bronzer brush. A lot of people use more dense brushes, and I just feel like it's way too hard to blend out. I would rather go in with this and then go in with a little bit more of a dense brush to do contour. But if I'm just bronzing my face, I want everything to be seamless, and this is definitely the brush. So I just do circular motions back and forth. I normally stop about here. You don't want to start getting darkness right in here. It'll just kind of draw your face down. So circular up and down. I like to get in the hairline right in here just so everything, you know, looks seamless. Also gonna go on the forehead. So I just do the sides of my forehead. Some people, you know, people who think they have a huge forehead will contour the sides and right in here. I don't think I have a big forehead, and when I do that, it looks too muddy and it just doesn't look good in my opinion. So I just do the sides from about here to here, and then right in my hairline right here to connect them. And then I leave, you know, the middle of the top of my forehead out. Then I'm just going to do the same on the other side. I kind of just swirl my brush in. This brush doesn't pick up like an excess amount of product, so you don't really have to tap it off. It doesn't really have too much fallout, so I don't really worry about it. And as y'all can see, I'm balding. I blame Cameron. He stresses me out too much, and I'm pretty sure it's his fault. So I just like to get bronzer all the way up in there so everything's seamless. I don't have a white scalp and, you know, a line of bronzer. That's not cute. I normally don't wear my hair super far back like that. I try not to anyway. And then I'll do my jawline. A lot of people like to intensely contour their jawline, but if you're trying to avoid a line of, you know, different color from your face to your neck, I don't understand why people do that. I mean, I don't think I have a double chin, so I don't need to, you know, shadow or hide much. But I just like to bronze my jawline and my neck just to kind of blend everything together again. No matter if I'm tan, white, if my foundation matches, like I always am blending down my neck no matter what. That's why all of my clothing gets makeup all over the collars. It just is what it is. I'm used to it. And you don't have to blend all the way down like I do. Just stay in this general area. As long as things are all the same color, you shouldn't have to blend too much. Okay, so got bronzer on. So like I was saying earlier, if you wanted to go in and do more of like a contour, I love to use this brush. It's the Morphe M441. It's just a tiny dense brush. I'll swirl it in my bronzer and just kind of hit that hollow point of the cheek. I don't go in big circular motions with this. I just kind of go in where I want it to be darker and more contoured out. But on a daily basis, I just want to look bronzed. I don't need a bunch of contour. So depending if I have time and want to do eyeshadow or if I'm not going to, it kind of just depends on the next step I do. Just to give like a little life back to my lid, so it's not all flat, you know, white shade. I do like to go in and put a little shadow in my crease. So if I'm just doing this and I'm not doing any other eyeshadow, I like to use my bronzer, just so all the colors on the face are tying in together. Really, it's just making a shadow on your lid so it's not flat. So this is, I'm going to use the Morphe M441. It's just like a little fluffy brush. Just going to swirl it in, and then I'll tap this off just because this brush does pick up more product and I don't want it falling all over the place. So I'll just go ahead and blend this in my crease. If I'm just doing this, I just go big circular motions. I'm not trying to be too neat. It's kind of just throwing a shadow in there and calling it a day. But normally I like to stay right on my brow bone and kind of go out. If anything, I try not to get the shadow right on my lid right here. I like to keep that a little bit brighter, but if I do, I'm not worried about it. So you don't need to have it too dark, just a little bit, just to give you some color. Make it look like you tried a little bit harder, you know. So, and with this, I'd go all the way inner corner to outer corner. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm not putting any extra shadow, so I don't really care. As long as you're not bringing shadow right, like in this area, you're fine. If you start bringing it in here, it's gonna be too dark and you're gonna start looking tired and it's not gonna be cute. So just kind of keep it light, keep it, you know, circular motions. I definitely like to hold my brush at the end or the middle. If you're holding your brush like this, you're not gonna be able to blend seamlessly. There's not enough range of motion. It's gonna feel weird. So like the less farther up you are, the easier it is to blend. In my opinion, you have, you know, more control almost over the brush. I'm just gonna keep that like that. Nothing crazy, just a little bronzer. So then from there, I go in with my setting spray. So this is the Urban Decay All Nighter. This is my ride or die. I cannot live without this. I do not go a day without spraying this on my face. I have to have it no matter what. No matter what foundation I'm wearing, every day, full coverage, glam, it doesn't matter. I need this in my life. This is the reason my makeup looks flawless. This is the reason it stays on all day. Like, everybody always compliments my makeup, and I swear to you it is this. As long as, 1, you blend, 2, you spray some setting spray, you're gonna look good. So I pretty much just drenched my face in this. And then, of course, I'm blending down my neck, so I spray it on my neck. I'm high maintenance, I know. So I just kind of let that dry. So also try not to make super crazy facial expressions. You don't want to be, you know, creasing anything. This is supposed to set it. You don't want to have any lines or anything. So the reason I do that first before my mascara is because I feel like when I put my mascara on and then I spray that and then, you know, my whole face is wet, my lashes are wet, I'm looking around, I get it everywhere, and I just don't have time to clean that up. So I like to do that. And then also I like to have my face semi-damp when I use my highlighter. I don't want to go in straight away, like right after I spray my face, because then I'll just be too wet. This is the Desi x Katy Fuego highlighter. Love this. Definitely makes you glow. So I'll just put that on the high points of my cheeks. On the tip of my nose. I don't like to highlight all up and down. 1, I wear glasses, so it doesn't really matter. 2, I feel like my pores are pretty big on my nose, so I don't want to be emphasizing that. Definitely above the lip. A lot. And then I like to come back in here and just kind of bring it up. So kind of like a C around your eye. Just so you know you have a little bit of that forehead highlight. Definitely love highlighter. Try not to get it in your brows. Oh, and then the brush, I'm using the Anastasia Beverly Hills A23, just a highlighting brush. So just gonna do that, and then my last step will be mascara. Always have to curl my lashes because they stick straight out and they're crazy. My lashes look terrible, and it is what it is. And then I'm going to use the Benefit Roller Lash. This is a good mascara. I normally don't buy high-end mascaras. I don't think it's necessary. You can definitely get one from the drugstore. I always get like Maybelline or L'Oreal ones, and they work perfectly fine. They are really good. It's just, I'm not saying you have to go buy this. Unlike the Urban Decay setting spray, you have to go buy that. So then I just go back and forth from the root up, just to get them as saturated as possible. So honestly, they don't look that great, but I can't blame it on the mascara because my lashes are just terrible. So don't judge the mascara off of my lashes. So that's about it. This is kind of just like my everyday, you know, going to work, going to run errands. This is the minimum of what I do pretty much every day. But I hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions, just let me know. If you want to see something else, a different video, just let me know.